Hello, everyone, and welcome to the course of World History. I am Mr. Samuelson, and today we are going to be looking at which maps do we use? A lesson on maps and how we can use them effectively, and which maps should be used in which situation. So our essential question today is, what can maps teach us about the world? Now, for reading maps, there are some things that we need to know in addition to latitude and longitude. And that is the other features that maps have that will help us to read them. One is the scale, and that's going to help to determine distance. No, it doesn't help determine weight. It helps determine distance. Right here we can see a scale, and here it is blown up, to show us the distance between, different items on that map. We also have the compass rose. The compass rose shows us north, south, east, and west, and can be found on most maps. Here we find it for the map of the United States. The last is the key. Now, the key is sometimes also called a legend, and sometimes it's called a key, but it's going to tell us what all these different symbols on a map and different colors on a map, and sometimes shadings can tell us about that information. Now, one type of map that we use a lot are physical maps, and physical maps focus on the physical features of the land, the mountains, the rivers, the bodies of water. Now, these show landforms and water, and usually altitude with some sort of shading for that altitude. A lot of world maps now will also show ocean depths, since we're getting a better sense of that, and we can start to see things like the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. Now, physical maps do not usually include man-made features. Sometimes they will still give us lines for some political boundaries, but the focus is on the physical features of the land. And sometimes we just get those physical features. Now, political maps then focus on how the world has been divided by people, how we have carved up that land and turned it into, places called Iowa and places called Michigan and places called Georgia. It's how we divide up the land. And land throughout the world has been divided up into these different states, frequently by, when we look around the world, colonizing powers from Europe had a big say in what most of the world boundaries now look like. Now, political maps can show us this division of the world. They can show us in continents. We don't typically see this when we're looking at, more advanced detailed maps, the type of stuff that we see in a high school world history class. More commonly, we'll see the world divided up into countries. There are also thematic maps. Now, thematic maps are intended to teach us about a region's resources or history or something else. We have all kinds of different thematic maps that we can look at. Now, in this case, down here, we're looking at a map that is kind of having fun, what each country leads the world in. Turns out the United States leads the world in Nobel laureates, woohoo, and getting killed by lawnmowers. I guess it's good to be on top of something. Now, resource maps also share where various natural resources can be found. So, for example, if we're looking at Ukraine, we can look at where can we find peat or brown coal or iron ore or gold can all be located on this type of resource map, which is just another type of thematic map. Now, various types of thematic maps can also be used to teach the history of a region. Here we see the D-Day invasions of Normandy during World War II, the triangular trade route between Europe, Africa, and the Americas, which brought slave populations from Africa to North America. These can all be found on thematic maps. Now, another part of geography that's important for us to talk about are physical systems. Now, on Earth, many natural systems affect people, and we have to understand these systems to really understand history. The lithosphere and the hydrosphere are some of these physical systems that talk about the land and the water that are covering the Earth. The lithosphere, you've probably studied plate tectonics and how the Earth is moving. That lithosphere is what we're talking about moving. We also have the hydrosphere, all the water on Earth. And again, you've probably studied the water cycle and all the effects that that has on the world. The atmosphere is also a part of this. This looks at all the gases that surround our planet, all the ones that are, trapped in the Earth's gravitational pull. And they go, not just what's close to us, but far, far, far out into what we would think of as space. We still have gases that are trapped in the Earth's gravitational pull and a part of our atmosphere. Now, the biosphere now looks at just the living things on Earth. And the biosphere is going to exist solely in the on the surface of the lithosphere and in the atmosphere. We don't have living things once we get deep enough underneath the lithosphere. Now, our biosphere is divided into ecosystems, which are communities of plants and animals that depend on each other. So all these animals and plants exist and codepend. Now, each ecosystem has its own biodiversity or variation of life. Some has a lot of life and some has very little, but it is its own biodiversity within a particular ecosystem. That's it for today. I hope that you picked up something useful in this lesson from the course of world history, and I'm looking forward to seeing you next time. So long, farewell.